The original Spyro's Adventure cast is home to some of the most iconic Skylanders in the entire series, but some are better than others, so today I'm setting out on a quest to rank them all. If you're new to the Fellowship Leaf channel, please consider subscribing. We upload weekly nerdy content and live streams. So, without further ado, let's get to the ranking. Whamshell comes in dead last for being utter crap at everything. He doesn't deal nearly as much damage as you need to, extremely slow, and also he's one of the only Skylanders from SSA I never actually owned. So I got the Light Core version in Swap Force, but then the NFC card stopped working, so now I have a bit of a grudge against him, okay? Warnado is one of my least used Skylanders, and for good reason. Despite me being a bit of a Sharknado merchant, Warnado takes that concept but just isn't practical, as his movement is extremely hard to aim, especially his main attack. That being said, his design is pretty cool. Voodoo is well known for being the Skylander with the biggest Vegeta forehead in the entire franchise, and unfortunately, in my opinion, it's just not a fun character to play as. His moveset just isn't very interesting apart from his main gimmick, that being he can lay down electric traps for enemies to fall into, and start brutally slashing them with his metal axe, a little bit like Rambo. However, while not being a war veteran, Voodoo is a pretty mediocre Skylander, and to be honest, maybe one of the more forgettable Skylanders out of the entire 32 character roster. Hex is up next on the list, which is a shame because the undead is my favourite element, and as a character, I really do like the idea of having a Skylander necromancer who's able to use dark magic against her opponents. However, despite this, Hex just isn't a fun character to play. Her base attack is a bit weak, and her spell attack is just a bit unreliable and slow, since when you summon your Skull Rain, your opponents still have an opportunity to get a hit on you, which just cancels the attack altogether. Also, I don't think there still exists a Hex figure with all limbs attached in the world. Next up is Zook, unfortunately, since I quite enjoy Zook. However, sometimes he's just a bit uninteresting to play as. However, I can admire he's just a dude who rocks up with a bazooka and can lay down traps to slow down his opponents. However, personally, he's just not my favorite to play as compared to other awesome Skylanders found in the life element. Prison Break is up next, and I think a lot of people can understand why, being that overall he's just a really slow character. However, in retrospect, I like how he's a character that's a bit more complex to play, using crystal shards and all. But still, that being said, just not my favorite playstyle, and that's why he's not my number one. This one really upsets me because Wrecking Ball is indeed the GOAT, but also kind of crap at everything, unfortunately. That being said, Wrecking Ball is just fun to play, but isn't very good. I mean, look at him. How could you hate this little man? This slot goes to Dino Rank, who's actually pretty fun to play as, but he's this low for a number of reasons. One being that overall he's a bit slow. His boomerangs at times can be a bit clunky to control, especially when you get the upgrade that allows him to direct his boomerang. But that being said, overall just a fun character with a really cool design, being an Australian T-Rex and all. Next up is Whirlwind, who I don't find myself playing too often, mainly because her attacks aren't very useful, but still really interesting and cool concept. For example, her secondary attack allows for her primary attack to be propelled forward to deal even more damage. And Whirlwind's final move is the ability to heal others in co-op, but this move is only useful if you have friends to play with, unlike someone like myself who has no friends. Overall a pretty cool character, just not the best moves or attacks. Cinder is up next on the list, who I actually quite enjoy playing as. The Lightning Bolt primary attack is quite useful with a huge range of attack, and the teleportation ability is great for movement, which also causes a ghost trail to be left behind, which can deal damage to enemies within range, and overall just a brilliant character to play as. Boomer is probably one of the most interesting Skylanders out of the roster, being that he's just a generic troll enemy turned good, which by definition makes him super unique compared to the more complex designs of the other Skylanders. Because of his insane personality, he's pretty fun to play as, but unfortunately his moves just aren't very useful, especially his bomb attack which comes from behind him, but still Boomer is the GOAT. Stump Smash is a pretty iconic Skylander, being that with a design such as his, just bringing the sense of power, just absolutely annihilating everything in his path. I also really like his ability to puke out acorns, which slow down enemies as they slowly become engulfed in branches and weeds. However, his final ability becomes almost redundant in future games, being that there's no water to trace. Which begs the question, why even bring him back as a Series 2 in Giants if that move isn't useful whatsoever? Drill Sergeant is a character with a super cool design, which is backed up with his backstory, being that he's an Archean robot, but apart from his super cool design in game, he's just not that fun to play, as considering his rockets just are a bit underwhelming, since they don't regenerate as fast as you want them to. Lightning Rod is probably one of the most underwhelming characters out of the entire selection, being that, you know, he's a Greek god, so you think he'd deal a little bit more damage in game, but don't get me wrong, he's definitely not bad, just not as powerful as you'd think it'd be. I'm a big fan of his secondary attack where he strikes lightning from above, especially when upgraded. Look at that, man! Sonic Boom is up next, probably with one of the most interesting movesets out of the entire franchise, being that she raises children to fight for her, who are brutally slaughtered just seconds after birth. Worthy sacrifice for Skylands, I guess. Zap is up next and is honestly just a blast to play as, being that all his range attacks are rapid fire, and he has some of the more unique moves like electrocuting his trail of water without taking away from any other parts of the Skylander. Terrafin is definitely a fun character to play as, since his underground attack is just so fun to perform, and that the fact that he's a little land shark, but the only drawback to not playing him is that his primary boxing attack has to be within hugging distance to be useful in any way. Bash is definitely my favourite Earth Skylander. Not only did he come in a 3-pack alongside a Ruptor and a Chop Chop, which I'm very nostalgic about since it was my first expansion apart from the starter pack, and in game he's just a really fun character to play as. From his primary whack ability all the way to how you can trace the landscape with him. Gilgrunt is up next, and believe me, the next few slots get harder and harder. Gilgrunt is obviously iconic for being one of the 3 OG starter pack Skylanders, and overall is just a fantastic character to play as, despite the fact he's a fish holding a harpoon gun, which begs the mortality of that, but still, Gilgrunt is a fantastic character and is well deserved to be in my top 15. Camo's up next, a character that grew on me over time. I love his regrowth ability. He's able to expand his body and weaponize it as it explodes, causing wide area of damage. I'm also quite a fan of his primary ability, since as it's upgraded, you can use it to heal you. Trigger Happy is also from the starter pack, and is just so much fun to play as, being that he's able to rapid fire his golden bullets. An interesting concept that didn't make it into the final game was that Trigger Happy's ammo would depend on your gold. However, I can imagine it'd be extremely hard to upgrade Trigger Happy. Still though, would have been interesting to see how that mechanic would be in the final game. Eruptor's up next. I just love the idea of a molten lava golem. His attacks of course would be pretty useful in game, especially the one where he explodes everywhere and the remains scattered across on the ground, dealing a massive amount of damage. Slam Bam comes in my number 10 spot, being mainly for his design and personality, but also in game a pretty heavy hitter. Around winter I love diving into Empire of Ice with Slam Bam, and overall it's just a really cool character with a killer design. Double Trouble is up next, who is just a beast in battle mode since his laser beam attaches itself to whomever you're battling, so as a result he's just an overpowered god. And of course I love his ability to duplicate himself. Any character with that ability is obviously interesting. Sunburn is in 8th place, known for being forgotten I would say, but in game he's just so much fun to play as, and in concept having a character as a fire phoenix is just so cool. His moves consist of teleportation and a range attack, which just is insanely powerful. Spyro is next just for the nostalgic factor alone, and in-game is overall just really fun to play as. He's probably the most balanced character in the game. I have so many fond memories of playing this character throughout 2011, and hence why he landed his boss in 7th place. Sheldov is in 6th. The character is just so much fun to play as, being a ninja and all, and the character fully embraces that in her moveset. The ability to do quick melee attacks, and of course the ability to go invisible and send out a decoy. Ghost Roaster is in number 5, again for very nostalgic reasons. I have so many fond memories of playing throughout Darklight Crypt with Ghost Roaster. I admired how weird the level was, and Ghost Roaster is a big part of that memory, and of course, in game he's pretty brilliant and fun to play as. Igniter is a fantastic character to play as, mainly for his design and personality, and of course in game his moves are basic but fits the character so well. Drobos is just a beast in Battle Arena. When you saw this guy getting placed on the portal, you know you were done. And of course, how can you not like a dragon wearing a high-tech mechanical suit? Flameslinger is my number 2, being mainly for the fact I'm a huge fan of the fantasy genre. Hint in the name, guys. And of course, Flameslinger plays into that idea. Chop Chop is my favourite Skylander of all time. Not just in SSA, but the entire franchise. I love his design, his backstory, and of course, most importantly, he's fun to play as. I love the theming of this character, being that he's an undead skeleton warrior who has been recruited as a Skylander. In game, he has a nice balance for literally everything: damage with his sword, defense with his shield, and speed with his wow pow. Anyway guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. This has been a pain to make, but if you have enjoyed, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Slice.